It's been kind of a tough year for trees all over Connecticut. We've had a couple of hurricanes. We've had some drought. It's a great big tree here. This is a Norwegian spruce. You can see probably goes up about 60 feet. It has pine cones. It's an evergreen, and it's wonderful as a road blocker and as an interest for birds. As we walk through here, I wanted to show you my little success story. This is my Franklinia tree, which I planted in memory of my father, who died a couple years ago. And it was about 6 feet tall, and the deer rubbed their antlers on it. You can just see a little bit of the former trunk of the tree. They stripped it of bark for about a foot, girdling the tree. But right below where they girdled it, all new growth is coming out. And it looks like the tree might end up being a bush rather than a tree, but it's still pretty cool and it's very encouraging. This right here is a curly willow. I bought this at a tag sale. It was probably about knee high. I loved it because it's got really curly bark, and I thought it would be great in flower arrangements. I didn't realize how incredibly big it would get. It is a water-seeking plant like most willows, but again, it provides some shade. It's kind of an interesting tree, and it ended up being pretty cool to have the branches put in bouquets or decorations. Now over here, I'm going to show you this really cool tree. Walk over here so you can get a better look of it. This is a dawn redwood. It's a deciduous tree, which means it loses its leaves. And most of the summer, once it leaves out, which are like little needles, it is a chartreuse green. And then right before it's about to lose the needles, it turns a beautiful salmon color. This tree, you can see it next to the Norwegian spruce, is probably about 2 stories tall, maybe even 3 stories right now. I put this in the back of my Mini Cooper when I first got it about 10 years ago, so you can see it really likes where it is right here. Here we go back to the curly willow. These trees here above me, which are not looking too good, this is a hemlock, and these are hemlocks over here. Unfortunately, in Connecticut, hemlocks have suffered tremendously from a little critter called woolly adelgid, which comes in and it's a little white bug that sucks the sap out of the trees. And it comes and goes. You usually have to spray the trees with a dormant oil, which does save them, but many forests of hemlocks have been decimated by the woolly adelgid. So we walk over this way. This is a red maple. Again, got this many years ago as a little tiny tree, and it suffered the loss of a couple limbs, but trees are pretty forgiving. They do come back. And though this one was sort of misshapen for a while, it's managed to put out some branches where it lost limbs before and has gotten to be pretty healthy with a really cool rounded shape. This tree over here is a maple tree. Lost a couple of branches in the last storm, and it's just starting to fill out. It had another tree right next to it. You might see that stump down there with the flagpole on it that stunted its growth. So now that it's got prime location, it should probably try to fill out a little bit. Coming over this way, this big tall tree right here is an elm, and over to the left is another elm. They're pretty rare in Connecticut because they were decimated by the Dutch elm disease. These two managed to survive. You can see they have a pretty high crown up there, and we feel lucky to have them here on our property. Over here is a dogwood tree. When the tree behind it came down, it took off part of the branches of the dogwood. You can see it's kind of a funky shape right now. And this dogwood got anthracnose this spring, which affected the leaves, but it's recovered pretty well, and I'm sure the branch that it's missing is going to grow back in a couple of years and provide us with lots of really cool pink blossoms. So as we come up this way, again we see that big elm tree. I want to show you this tree right here. This is a yellow magnolia, and it had a big tree growing behind it, so it was seeking the sun. And as the tree behind it was cut down, it's now growing up. It's somewhat righting itself and putting out branches here in the back where it was sheltered and in a lot of shade. But in the spring, this has beautiful, beautiful yellow big blossoms on it. As we walk around this way, you can see the blueberry patch, and behind it is a Katsura tree. I think I mentioned this in a prior video, but this tree I bought on the streets in Vermont in Saxton's River. It's pretty small. Now this is a good 40 feet high, and it turns burgundy in the fall. Can't wait for that. It's really a stunning tree. And as we walk around here, you'll see a couple of other really big sugar maples. They are a couple 100 years old. Right back here, there's another one over there. And they're big enough that we can tap them and make our own maple syrup. So that's a pretty good tour of the trees that we've got here at Long Hill Road. The only downside to the trees is they all drop their leaves, and we have tons and tons and tons of work when it comes October and November. But the shade that they provide and just their beautiful elegance in the backyard make it all worthwhile. Hope you have a beautiful fall. Enjoy all the bounty that comes with fall, both from the vegetable garden and your perennial gardens. And take care.